You've been fasting every single day, skipping breakfast, drinking black coffee, waiting it out, and yet the scale hasn't moved. Your energy is still crashing in the afternoon, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're wondering if you're doing this completely wrong. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not all fasting is created equal. The difference between fasting 16 hours and fasting 23 hours isn't just a number. It's a completely different biological experience, with different hormonal responses, different effects on your brain, your muscle, your sleep, and your long-term health. Choose the wrong one for your body right now, and you're not just spinning your wheels. You could be quietly raising your blood sugar, triggering chronic fatigue, or losing the very muscle you've been trying to protect. So today, we're going inside the body. We're following the science: insulin, ketones, BDNF, cortisol, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly which method makes sense for where you are right now. Stay until the end, because the most important part isn't which method is better, it's which one is right for you. The one thing that controls whether you burn fat or store it. Before comparing methods, you need to understand one molecule that controls almost everything: insulin. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates and sugar, glucose floods your bloodstream. Your pancreas immediately releases insulin to move that glucose into your cells. That's its job. But here's the part most people miss. When insulin is elevated, your body is physically incapable of burning fat. Fat cells stay locked. Fatty acids stay stored. Your body runs entirely on glucose, and the moment that glucose runs out, you feel tired, irritable, and reach for food again. Fat burning only begins after insulin drops low enough to unlock those fat cells, and that process takes time, typically between 10 to 14 hours after your last meal. First, your body burns through the glucose stored in your liver, called glycogen. The liver holds roughly 80 to 100 grams of it, enough energy for a light morning jog. Once that supply is gone, the metabolic switch flips. Fat cells begin releasing fatty acids. The liver converts those fatty acids into ketones, a cleaner, more stable fuel source that your brain actually prefers over glucose. This is the state both 16-8 and OMAD are trying to reach. The difference is how long you stay there, how deeply you go, and what happens to your body in the process.
What actually happens during 16-8? With 16-8, you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window, say noon to 8 p.m. Simple on paper, but biologically significant. After 10 to 14 hours of fasting, glycogen is depleted. Fat burning begins. Ketone levels start rising. Your brain, now running on this cleaner fuel, becomes noticeably sharper. Many people describe this window, usually mid-morning, as the clearest mental state of their day. That's not coincidence. That's ketones at work. Here's what makes 16-8 particularly powerful over time. Insulin sensitivity improves. Studies show that after just a few weeks on consistent 16-8, fasting glucose and insulin levels drop meaningfully. Your cells become more responsive to insulin, a critical shift for anyone dealing with belly fat, prediabetes, or blood sugar instability. And despite the myth that fasting eats your muscle, it doesn't. During a 16-hour fast, growth hormone levels actually rise, which helps preserve lean muscle while directing the body to burn fat preferentially. This is why many athletes use 16-8 as a cutting strategy without sacrificing performance. Perhaps the most underrated benefit: it fits your actual life. You can still eat lunch and dinner. You can sit at the table with your family. You don't have to explain anything to anyone. You simply stop eating after 8 p.m. and skip breakfast. That's it. And because you're not eating late at night, your sleep quality improves. Melatonin flows without insulin interference, and many people report deeper sleep within the first week. 16-8 isn't perfect. If your eating window is full of processed food, refined carbs, and late-night snacks, the fasting hours won't compensate. And for some people, 16 hours isn't quite long enough to fully deplete glycogen and reach significant ketone production, especially if dinner was carb-heavy. The first week is also genuinely uncomfortable. Hunger, brain fog, low energy, these are normal. They're your body switching fuel systems. Push through 4 or 5 days, and most people describe the fog lifting completely. What actually happens during OMAD? OMAD, 1 meal a day, means fasting for 23 hours and compressing your entire day's nutrition into a single sitting. If 16-8 eases you into fat burning, OMAD throws you into the deep end. After 23 hours, glycogen has been completely exhausted for many hours. Ketone levels rise significantly higher than with 16-8. Many OMAD practitioners report extraordinary mental clarity, suppressed hunger, and a strange but real sense of lightness throughout the day. Biologically, this makes sense. After your brain fully adapts to ketones, hunger signals quiet down and focus sharpens. You're running on your most efficient fuel. But the moment you break that fast, something dramatic happens. You're not just eating, you're trying to deliver your entire daily caloric needs, protein requirements, fiber, vitamins, and minerals in under an hour. Your pancreas, which has been producing near zero insulin for almost a day, is suddenly flooded with a massive signal to process everything at once. This hormonal whiplash is where OMAD gets complicated. Research shows that despite expectations, some OMAD practitioners see higher morning blood sugar, not lower. Why? A large meal takes hours to fully process. Your body may still be clearing glucose from the previous night's feast by the time you wake up. The insulin spike from one enormous meal can actually be more destabilizing than 3 moderate meals spread across the day. There's also the practical problem of nutrition. Getting adequate protein, at least 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, is genuinely difficult. The same goes for fiber, magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins. Many people on OMAD end up chronically undernourished despite eating enough calories because nutrient absorption has limits. Your gut handles smaller, distributed meals more efficiently than one overwhelming load. And 65% of people quit OMAD within 3 to 6 weeks, not because they lack willpower, but because the method demands a lifestyle that very few people actually have. Social dinners, family meals, office lunches, OMAD turns all of these into logistical obstacles or sources of social friction. OMAD has its place for experienced fasters who eat clean, monitor their nutrition carefully, and want to break through a fat loss plateau or trigger stronger autophagy, cellular self-cleaning. OMAD can be a powerful short-term tool, but it should be used with medical supervision, not as a starting point.
One of the most compelling arguments for intermittent fasting has nothing to do with weight loss. It's what happens inside your brain. Dr. Mark Mattson, neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins and one of the world's leading fasting researchers, has spent over 25 years studying how fasting affects brain function. His findings are striking. Ketones don't just fuel the brain, they trigger the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your neurons. It promotes the growth of new neural connections, protects existing neurons from damage, enhances memory and learning, and supports emotional regulation. This is why the mental clarity people describe during fasting isn't placebo. It's a measurable biological event. And from an evolutionary perspective, it makes perfect sense. Our ancestors couldn't afford to become mentally sluggish when food was scarce. The brain had to become sharper during hunger because finding food required intelligence, strategy, and focus. Ketones were the ancient performance fuel that made this possible. Mattson calls this cyclic metabolic switching, the rhythm of moving between fasting and feeding states. During fasting, the body shifts into repair mode. Autophagy clears damaged cells, neurons regenerate, and inflammation decreases. During eating, the body shifts into growth mode, rebuilding, recovering, absorbing. It's this cycling, not constant fasting, that produces the deepest benefits. Both 16-8 and OMAD can support this cycle. The question is, which one supports it without creating too much stress on your system? So, which one should you actually choose? If you're new to fasting, start with 16-8, no debate. A 2023 study found that beginners using 16-8 had an 82% adherence rate in the first 3 weeks. Those who started directly with OMAD, 38%. The metabolic adaptation required for OMAD is significant, and forcing it before your body is ready leads to elevated cortisol, poor sleep, muscle breakdown, and eventually abandonment. 16-8 is also the superior choice if you exercise regularly. Research from Frontiers in Sports and Active Living shows that 16-8 users retain significantly more lean mass than OMAD users because protein can be distributed across multiple meals, supporting muscle repair more effectively. OMAD is an advanced method. Consider it only after months of consistent 16-8 when your body has clearly adapted to fat metabolism, your fasting glucose has improved, and you can manage hunger comfortably. And always with medical oversight if you have any existing health conditions. OMAD is not recommended for pregnant or breastfeeding women, anyone with type 1 diabetes or insulin-dependent medications, individuals with a history of disordered eating, those who are underweight, or children and teenagers in active growth phases. The hormonal and nutritional demands are simply incompatible with these situations. The part no one talks about. Here's what the science papers don't measure: your relationship with food, your stress levels, your sleep, your social life, and your mental health. If you're sleeping poorly, fasting won't fix that. It may make it worse. If you're under chronic stress, adding rigid eating restrictions raises cortisol further, which actively opposes fat loss. If OMAD causes you to restrict all day and then binge at night, you haven't found a fasting protocol. You've found a cycle that damages your metabolism and your self-perception. The most powerful fasting protocol is the one you can sustain calmly, consistently, and without dread. For most people, that's 16-8, done honestly with real food, real sleep, and real patience. You don't need to fast 23 hours to deserve results. You need to understand your body well enough to work with it instead of against it. Start where you are. If you're currently eating 5 times a day, moving to 16-8 is already a profound shift. Give it 3 months. Notice your energy, your sleep, your clarity, your hunger patterns. Let the data from your own body guide the next step. Because in the end, the hours you fast matter far less than the consistency you bring to the practice and the kindness you bring to yourself while you figure it out. If this helped you understand your body a little bit better today, that's the whole point. Subscribe for more science made simple every week.